Very good. Hare Krishna. Anjana Salakaya Chakshul and Militam Jaina Tasmai Sutale Swaya Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sivasri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Sivasri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare. Very wonderful to see everyone. Very difficult act to follow, so we'll just start speaking some Prabhupada Katha. So wonderful also to see the children taking part. This was, of course, Prabhupada's desire. Srila Prabhupada himself, as a child, he said by watching his father, he said just watching his father, he learned everything in deity worship, he said. And he said everything he taught us in ISKCON, he learned as a child. I think I might have said that last night here. Other than books, the order of his spiritual master, to give us language to preach to the Westerners. He said, otherwise I learned everything from my father. He said, from my father, he said, pure devotee, he said my father was. So last night, for those of you who were here, I did talk about Srila Prabhupada's travels here in Australia. And I was going to start out a little different this evening. I had one Prabhu ask me how I came to ISKCON. And I said it was very simple, actually. I was in the university. I was in my second year, and I was 19 years old. And it seems at that point in life, when you turn 19, you start to question everything in life. When you turn 19, you start to question everything you're doing. Actually, astrologically, it's called your Saturn return, your first Saturn return. And you start to wonder. I was in the university. My first year, I majored in marketing, accounting, all business courses. And rapidly, I was changing. By the next semester, I had changed all my majors to religion, psychology. I wanted to understand things. But suddenly, I just became very unhappy. I didn't know why I was in the university. Even I had a scholarship. My best friend, he was there on a scholarship. And we both wanted to know what the purpose of life was. He was very philosophical. He would read all these books. Me, I just wanted to get in touch with God. I wanted God to come and save me. I was a Catholic boy in grade school. I was an altar boy. When I was 8 years old, one of the nuns grabbed me. She thought I guess I was a good prospect. So I was a pujari at 8 years old, ringing bells on an altar, different altar, Jesus's altar. Same thing, I was ringing bells. We didn't have nice prasadam there, though. We would only get that tiny little host. They call unleavened bread, this tiny little thing. But you can see how the principles were the same, huh? Lord Jesus, he had the Last Supper. He was feeding everyone big feast. But then they got to where they just give you this little wafer that they offer, the body and blood of Christ. What do we eat? Krishna Prasadam. This is our business, Krishna Prasadam. Anyway, why it happened is because in those times, Prabhupada had everyone in the temple go out on the Harinam party. He said one person should stay back in the temple to take care of the deities. Otherwise, everyone go out on the chanting party. So myself, my god brothers, my god sisters, we all came because of Prabhupada's books. We either received the book or we heard the chanting out in the streets. I saw the devotees in a park, and my friend took them 3 times to convince me, go see them, they're nice people. And I thought they were from a different planet, these people. Shave, shiny heads, bright tilak, bright yellow robes, synthetic robes they got at the cloth shop. Everyone wore this from the same bolt of cloth. You just cut it, became saris, it became dhotis, and it became our sash. We all wore our sash in those days. So I went up to them. This is a special thing we have. These are Prabhupada's slippers. If you stay to the end of the class, you'll get Prabhupada's slippers. He wore these. This is the 50th anniversary of Prabhupada's wearing these slippers. So you'll all get Prabhupada's slippers on your head, but you have to stay to the end of class. So we were watching them chanting, about a dozen. One of them was Daiva Shakti, and her husband at that time, Nayana Baram. He was the temple president in Philadelphia. My friend said, let's see them, let's see them. Anyway, finally we went down, and Hare Krishnas have the answer to everything. That's one of our unique qualities. You have a question, we have an answer, right? So I said, what are you doing? We're chanting the names of God, Krishna, name of God, all attractive. So I said, I want to know God. That's what I wanted. I wanted to know God. They told me so much. They told me God's name, his address, right? Where he comes from, his mother's name, his father's name, everything they told me about God. And I accepted everything. But it all came from seeing devotees out in the streets, chanting. Just like we chant here, very nice. And I heard you go out Friday nights, I think, and Sundays. You have regular programs in the park. This is what we do to bring. If you want Krishna, you have to give him to others. That was Prabhupada's program. You have to give him to others. The more you give him, the more you get. Just the opposite of the material. Everything's the opposite. Material world, if I have $1 million, I give you 100,000, you 100,000, I'll have nothing. But with Krishna, you give Krishna to this person, the more you give him, the more you get Krishna. So I became Prabhupada's servant. It was right after Janmashtami. I left with them from New Vrindavan. I had been living in the temple just 16 months. I was 20 years old when I became his servant. And the first place he went to, well, the second place was Dallas, Texas. That's where the first Gurukula was. And Prabhupada was going there. He wanted to see the children just like they're doing here. Chanting, dancing, learning Sanskrit. There's that one photograph you see, Dwarkadish, his name. He's still around, Dwarkadish. Now he's in his late 50s, I think. And Prabhupada was showing him how to write Sanskrit, Dwarkadish. Call him DDD, Dwarkadish Das. DDD was his nickname. So that was my first morning walk with Srila Prabhupada as his servant. And I have no idea what I'm doing. But was told, he's on the walk, you hold the microphone, you walk next to him. That was my service. Shama Sundar's secretary gave me 3 instructions. When you answer the bell, Prabhupada rings the bell, you answer it. I said, okay. Prabhupada's on the airplane, you sit next to him. Prabhupada's in the car, you sit next to him. You know, so far that was pretty easy. But it was also very difficult, sitting next to the pure devotee. Very difficult. There's one picture of my first morning walk with Srila Prabhupada in Dallas, Texas. So Prabhupada would go on the walk right as the sun's coming up. He would leave his room before sunrise So that by the time he's walking, the sun's coming up. So it was a little chilly in the morning. And Prabhupada had his chadar. So as the sun went up, of course it started getting warmer. You know, I'm Prabhupada's servant, brand new servant. One day I'm with him now, 24 hours. He hands me his chadar. And I just grabbed it. I didn't even know what to do with it. Didn't even know how to fold the chadar. That's the first picture you see with me with Srila Prabhupada. Both of our hands are on his chadar. He's showing me how to fold a piece of cloth. That's when you know you're a fool. Don't even know how to fold a piece of cloth. He had to show me. When I see that picture, I'm so happy to see Prabhupada. Patiently, just like this, he said, like this. And he folded, and then I put it over my arm. I have that chadar. It's one thing. I don't have it here, but I have it at home. It's one thing. That's a whole other story. But we're on the morning walk. And of course, on the morning walk with Prabhupada was one of very special times. Because in the temple room, we would see Prabhupada offering respects, dandavats, before the deities, greeting the deities. Then he would sit down on the Vyasasan. We would do Guru Puja, and he would sit there. He's chanting to his spiritual master. We're chanting to him. And he'd chant. And then he would give class. And very rarely did he ask questions at the end of the class. You'll see some videos in Australia where he did. He did it in Mexico and Caracas. Hridayananda translated his classes into Spanish, every sentence back and forth. And Prabhupada said, do they have any questions? And he did that here in Australia. When Mother Visa, he would arrange evening classes, and they would be in halls. So Prabhupada was very kindly answering questions. But usually, he would give class, and you hear the tapes, thank you very much. That was the end. So the morning walk was special, because Prabhupada would interact with his disciples sometimes. Sometimes he just had his hand in his bead bag and he would chant. Sometimes you wouldn't see anything. He would just be walking very briskly with his cane. He would walk. And then sometimes he would start conversations. And you had to wait for him. It's one of the offenses to the spiritual master is to initiate a conversation. Like Prabhupada would say, he's not your plaything. You can do whatever you like. He's not your plaything. So we would wait. And there was one brahmachari, young brahmachari. We were all young, and we were brahmacharis for the most part. Girls were brahmacharinis. I guess it's a term Prabhupada coined back in the 70s, the brahmacharini. We had brahmacharini ashram, brahmachari ashram. So he would start a conversation. And I'm next to Prabhupada. I'm just holding the microphone. It's my first day, so I'm learning as well what to do. And I could see this brahmachari the whole time. He just wanted to say something to Prabhupada. Because we all did. We just wanted to have Prabhupada speak to us. You speak to him. But he was afraid. He couldn't find the opportunity. He didn't know what to say. As we were all afraid, awe and reverence. Then the whole morning walk is off, finished. He never asked them a question, this brahmachari. So at the end of the morning walk, Prabhupada walks back to the car. The back door, I open the back door of the car. Prabhupada gets in, and I'm getting ready to close the door. And that brahmachari, he's about 2 meters away, and he sees my last chance. Prabhupada's leaving. He may never be on another morning walk. Prabhupada's leaving tomorrow. And he's standing there looking at Prabhupada. Prabhupada, how do I become Krishna conscious? Prabhupada looked at him. He said one word. And then he turned forward. Like he was done. That was it. He just turned forward. And I shut the door. And I got around the other side, sat down beside Prabhupada. My new service, sitting beside Prabhupada in the car. I'm sitting there, and the car drove off. Prabhupada was so expert. He's written how many books we have? I don't know, 60, 70, 80 books we say, Srila Prabhupada. All the books are telling you how to become Krishna conscious. That's all he did. Everything he did was showing us how to become Krishna conscious. But this devotee asked a question, and Prabhupada told him in one word. Didn't require so many lectures, so many books. One word, Prabhupada said. Some of you know the word from my book or from classes. Most of you don't, I think, here. What was the one word? Desire. Not chanting. Chanting, we can chant. Everyone's chanting. We're always chanting so many things. We chant music from the radio, cinema songs, right? Everyone's chanting. Surrender. We're all surrendered. We surrender to our dogs. We surrender to our husbands, our wives. We surrender. Desire. Prabhupada, perfect answer. That's all we do. The spirit soul, we have no other business constantly desiring. Krishna has to fulfill those desires. Right? Why do we say, not a blade of grass moves without Krishna's sanction, without the sanction of God? So not a blade of grass moves. So we have desires without Krishna's help. We can't fulfill those desires. So he's allowing us to fulfill our desires. But if you want to be Krishna conscious, all your desires, they have to come down to just one desire, to serve Krishna. Not that we desire nice car, nice job, nice house, nice spouse, so many things. And he'll fulfill those desires. But if you want Krishna, you can have no other desires. That's what this process is that Prabhupada gave us. It's the process of purifying our desires. That's what we do. And all these books are to help us develop our love of Krishna. When I got Brahmin initiation, it was in New Dwarka. I had been a devotee. I'd been in the temple for 1 year. I got first initiation after 3 months. 9 months later, we received Brahmin initiation. And we drove all the way across country, just like from Sydney to Perth. We drove from New Vrindavan to Los Angeles. And I got to go in the garden, Prabhupada's garden, every afternoon. And Prabhupada would hear from his Krishna book, which had just come out some months before. First volume of Krishna book, all Krishna's childhood pastimes. And the second volume was there. So the person who was reading, he had left, went back to his temple. So the president of the temple there in Los Angeles, I walked into the garden because I'm with Kirtanananda Swami. That was my qualification. I was with him. Otherwise, to go in Prabhupada's garden, only 5 people going in there. And I got to be one of them. And when I'm going in, he handed me the Krishna book. When Prabhupada wants you to read, he said, you read. I said, okay. We all sat down. Prabhupada was sitting on asana, little trellis around him, flowers, Tulsi Devi around. I sit down. First thing he did, he looked at me. He said, I like the Cowherd Boys very much. And then finally he told me to read. The Krishna book, reading Krishna book was one of my very first services when I went into the temple in New Vrindavan. During lunch, my service was to read Krishna book while everyone ate lunch. I would eat after everyone was finished. but I would read a Krishna book story. And then at nighttime in the brahmachari ashram, I was supposed to tell the story, whatever I could remember from the story. So that was one of my very first services, was reading Krishna book. Now, 1 year later, I'm reading it to Srila Prabhupada. He's listening to the Krishna book stories. It's the most wonderful thing. And I don't know, I found some story I started reading. And 4 or 5 of us, brahmacharis, kirtananandas there, Prabhupada sitting there, hand in his bead bag, and I'm reading the story. I don't remember the story, but I remember what happened. I got to this one point, thinking, Balaram or Krishna kills this demon. And he always killed them in a very dramatic way. Even if it was just touching him with a blade of grass. That's very dramatic too, to be able to do, just gone. But sometimes rip open their mouths, swing them around, throw them into the... So many things, bloody. Young boys, I like blood, you know? Like blood and guts. All those things. So I like these stories. Anyway, I got to the point where I'm reading, everyone's listening, Prabhupada's listening, eyes closed. And I said, Krishna did boom like this. Prabhupada started laughing. And he didn't stop. He just started laughing and laughing. And then his body's shaking, and he's laughing, and his whole body's shaking. And tears start coming out of his eyes, and he's laughing and laughing. Then he starts slapping his knee. Hey. We're all laughing. We were laughing watching Prabhupada laugh. Hey, stop. Stop playing with it. I'm laughing. We're all laughing watching Prabhupada. He was our transparent via media. He was our connection. We're just listening to the story. But Prabhupada, he was definitely on a very different level. Laughing and laughing and laughing, and his body shaking and slapping his... We say that, I know in America, I don't know here, call it a knee slapper. That's like the height of laughing. And Prabhupada was doing that. His book, I'm reading Prabhupada, what he wrote. So then, I had an idea. Next day, I'm going to be reading Krishna book. Prabhupada very regulated. Every day, chanting his round, same time, translating, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, morning walk, same time every day, wherever he went, class, same time, breakfast, lunch, his massage, very regulated. Devotee of the Lord's very regulated. You saw that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his schedule, everything. That way the mind becomes very calm, peaceful. Regulation, very good. So I'm thinking the next day, I'm going to read a story. It was one of my favorite stories. And I thought, I'm going to read this story. And when I get to this one line, I thought, Prabhupada's going to laugh, just like he did yesterday. I convinced myself that when I read this line, he's going to laugh, just like yesterday. So finally, 24 hours go by. I'm on the morning walk with Prabhupada because I'm with Kirtanananda Swami. Now I'm in the afternoon, and I'm nervous because I have all this plans, and I'm convinced what's going to happen. And we sit down, and Prabhupada chants a little, he reads a little, and I have the bookmarker on the story I want to read to Prabhupada. So finally he looks at me. Wouldn't he just go, time to read? He didn't have to say anything, he'd just look at you. You had to know what to do. So he looked at me, and I'm starting reading. My heart's beating, and I'm reading, and I came up to the spot. It's the story of David Gorilla. He was one of my favorites. Living in Vrindavan with the monkeys, not one of my favorites anymore, you know. But he was one of their, and he was very nasty, big black ape, and very very rascally. He was a big rascal and very irreverent. He did all kinds of things, right? He showed his bodily parts to the girls. Nasty he was. But he was behind the bushes and everything. And he was watching a jugya by the Brahmins doing their big jugya. And what did he do? Came from behind and he started passing urine all over the fire. I thought that was hilarious. So did Prabhupada. He starts laughing and laughing and laughing, just like yesterday. And his body's shaking. He was in ecstasy. And he's laughing and laughing, and he's crying and laughing and slapping his knee. And we're all in ecstasy. Not because of Krishna book, because of Prabhupada. Because he's giving us Krishna. And we're laughing and laughing and laughing. And then finally he stopped laughing and I went on with the story. But how we heard the story and how he heard the story was very, very different. He was with Krishna. So then the next day came. We go into the garden and Krishna took, we know Krishna's source of memory, intelligence, forgetfulness. He made me forget everything. Otherwise, I would have picked a story because I figured, keep going. It's Krishna killing, Balaram killing the demons. And he told me he liked the cowherd boys. It's the very first thing he said to me. I like the cowherd boys very much. So the next day comes, we all offer obeisances. We sit down, Prabhupada sits down, he looks at me. Immediately he looks, because he knew what I was doing. He was very kind. He knew what I wanted him to do. He was happily doing it, not because I wanted, because he enjoyed hearing about Krishna and Balaram and the cowherd boys. He loved it. But at the same time, he knew exactly everything I was thinking. We came back the next day. He also knew what I was thinking, but he took away all my intelligence. As soon as we sat down, he looked at me, said, read. And I hadn't picked a story. So then then he said, anywhere. He said, Krishna's like a sweet ball. Wherever you bite, it's sweet. So that was my first lesson. Don't try to trick your spiritual master. And Krishna, anywhere, he said, which I heard him say that many times to devotees. Where, Prabhupada? Anywhere. Which book? Any book. Every book Prabhupada gave us, you can become Krishna conscious just by reading it. So 3 months later, I became his servant. In the afternoon, Prabhupada would have lunch, then he would take a little nap, half hour or so. He was only sleeping 2-3 hours at night. So we had a little nap time. He told me about that. Took a nap after lunch. And then he would go to his sitting room. His afternoon, just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur had the times he did so many things, so did Prabhupada. His afternoon from like 2 to 5 o'clock, that was his personal bhajan time. Sometimes he would read his books. Sometimes he would play harmonium, chant bhajans, Narottam Das Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Sometimes he would walk around, chant japa on his beads. But that was his personal time. It weren't people going in and out of his room. And for me, when I would go in there, he would ring the bell. I'd see him sitting behind his desk reading his books. He's translating them in the middle of the night while we're all sleeping. And for me, that was like, it was a big revelation. It was kind of a big surprise. He's reading his books. And I'd go in every day, find him in the afternoon, reading his books. So I'm with him about 6 months. And he rings the bell. It's the afternoon. He rings his bell. I go in, offer obeisances. Let me take off this sweater. And I offer obeisances and sit up, and he has his reading glasses on. He's reading Bhagavad Gita, as it is. And I'm sitting right in front of him, and he looks at me. He said, if you just read this one book, you can become Krishna conscious. He said, you don't have to read hundreds of books. Just this one book. He said, if you read it, you understand. He said, you can be Krishna conscious. You don't have to read so many books. He said, everything is here in this book. Then he put his head back down and started reading again. I offered obeisances, went back to my room. He was in ecstasy reading his Bhagavad Gita. And he wanted to let me know. He's encouraging me as well. Read my books. Read my books. I went back to the room, sat down. Another 6 months go by. We're in a different city. One was Los Angeles. This one's somewhere else. Maybe it was Vrindavan, maybe it was Calcutta. Every day, same thing, he's reading his books. So another 6 months go by. It's the afternoon, he rings his bell. I go in, I offer obeisances. He's sitting behind his desk, got his reading glasses on. He's reading Nectar of Devotion. He looks at me. What did he say? If you just read this one book, you can become Krishna conscious, he said. Everything is in this book, he said, to become Krishna conscious. He said, you don't have to read. He said the same thing he said 6 months before. You don't have to read hundreds of books, just this book. If you read it carefully, you understand, you can be Krishna conscious. Then he put his head down and he started reading again. I offered obeisances and left the room. Does anyone have a book, one of Prabhupada's books nearby here you can give me? I need a book. Okay, that will do. Coming back. Okay, that's better. Once in a class, Prabhupada was giving class, and he said he wanted a quote. He said, who has a Bhagavad Gita? No one in the class had a Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada's like, no Bhagavad Gita in the whole class? Everyone should have books with you, ready all the time. That was Prabhupada's understanding. That was Prabhupada. So another year goes by. I'm Prabhupada's servant. We're in Juhu. He rings the bell. So I come in. I'm doing this every day. I'm doing this a few dozen times. He rings the bell. I come in, offer obeisances. You never know what's going to happen when you go in the room. You never know what he might say, what he's going to ask for. Always exciting. Could surprise you. So I offer obeisances, I sit up, and he's reading Krishna book. The book I read to him, Krishna book. The book I first read when I went into the temple. First book I read, Krishna book. He's reading Krishna book. Got his reading glasses on. And he looks at me. What does he say? This book is so nice, he said. This book is so nice. He said, if you just read this one book, you can become Krishna conscious. He said, everything is in here. He said, if you read and understand, you can become Krishna conscious. You don't have to read so many books. You don't have to read hundreds of books. Just this one book, he said, if you read it. He was in ecstasy reading his books every day. Prabhupada was in ecstasy all of the time. He didn't have a legal pad where he was looking, making corrections. He was very happy with his books, completely content reading his books. He looked at me. Don't have to read so many books. Just this book, he said. You read it, you can be Krishna conscious. And he kept looking at me. He didn't put his head back down this time. He's still looking and looking. You don't even have to read the whole book. He said just one chapter, one story. Yeah? We know that in Krishna book. At the end, every story. If you read this story, and you know, it says that all the time. He said just one chapter of this book. If you read it, you can be Krishna conscious. He's staring at me. He must be looking, oh, a nonsense boy in front of me. He's not reading my books. What do I have to do? He's thinking. He's staring at me. You don't even have to read the whole chapter. He said just one page. You read one page in this book, he said, you can become Krishna conscious. And he kept looking at me. So you can't leave because he's talking to me. No one else in the room, just me. So kind Prabhupada was. And he's looking at me. You don't even have to read the whole page. One line, he went like this. One line, if you read one line of this book, you can become Krishna conscious. And he's staring at me. You don't even have to read the whole line. One word, he went. One word. You read one word in this book, you can become Krishna conscious. Because Krishna's in every word. This is what Prabhupada gave us. This is why we read his books. This is why we go out on the streets and try to force people to take these books, to save them from the hellish condition in the material world. Everyone has to suffer. We forced them. Prabhupada said, right, by hook or by crook, give them a book. That was Prabhupada. He said, what can you say in 3 minutes? But if you give them a book, you can change their life. He told me, right? 16 years that book sat on the bookshelf in his house. 16 years it sat there. I hear these stories all the time. We used to call them time bombs. Give someone a book. You never know when it's going to explode into their life. Might happen right away. Might happen 10, 15 years. Somebody might have, people buy books in the charity shops. You know, England, there's many, many charity shops. I don't know about here. They're very famous. You'll find books in the charity shops. People have picked books up out of the trash can. People bought and they just get rid of it. Somebody else took the book. You don't know how these books will come into your life. But if you just open it up, Prabhupada said, you just take it and open it up. He says your life becomes successful. They're so amazing because it's Krishna. Huh? You know, during the month of December, our marathon, what do you see on the altar? You see the deities, Guru, Gauranga, and you'll see the books up there, deities on the altar. We were on the airplane once, myself and Pradyumna, Prabhupada's Sanskrit editor. Prabhupada always sat at the window seat. I would sit next to him. That was my duty, my service. Pradyumna sitting there. And Prabhupada's reading his Bhagavad Gita as it is. And he's reading. And he looks at us. He said, what author reads their books once it's printed. Do you know any author? He said, once a book is printed, do they read it? He said, no. Once it's done, they go on to the next book. He said, but here am I reading this Bhagavad Gita as it is. He said, why? We know he's going to give us the answer. We're not going to say anything. Why, he said. He said, these are not my words. They're Krishna's words. These books are Krishna's words. So all these things, very nice. We come in, chant before the deities, we worship the deities. But Prabhupada's books, they can change your life reading these books. People come up to me, especially since I've been in Australia the last few weeks, and Grahasta families, what can we do? They always say, what can I do? I say, you sit down together, morning and evening, if you can, read Prabhupada's books together for 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes as a family. You read Prabhupada's books. That's what you can do. Everyone can do. He said, when I became his servant, he said to me, you read my books, he said, you can ask me any question you want. Imagine, gift he gave me. He said, whatever question you have, he said, you ask me. I regret that I didn't do it very often. But once, when I first became his servant, Prabhupada was leaving. He went from New Vrindavan, where I joined him, then he went to Dallas, then he went to Los Angeles, then he went to Hawaii, and he was on his way to Vrindavan for Kartik, 1972, month of Kartik, October 15th and November 15th that year, I believe, or November 14th, whatever. It was the first time Prabhupada would spend the entire month of Kartik in Vrindavan since he left 1965. First time he would be there. And he was looking forward, he was excited one day on the plane, sitting next to him, and he said, so we're going to Vrindavan for Kartik. I didn't know what Kartik was, 1972. None of us none of us did. But he said, we're going there. He said, and I'm going to be giving classes on the nectar of devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He said, and you'll read from it. He said, and I'll stop you, and I'll give commentaries. I said, yes, Prabhupada. So he was meditating, going to Vrindavan. Vrindavan, Radha Damodar Temple, giving classes in there in the courtyard. Rupa Goswami's Samadhi and Bhajan Kutir. Prabhupada said, Rupa Goswami started this Hare Krishna movement, this Hare Krishna society. It was his desire. And Prabhupada said his rooms in Vrindavan, Prabhupada said they were the hub of the wheel of the spiritual world. You know what that means? You know what, anyone, you drive a car, you all have cars, all the cars have wheels. In the center of the wheel is the hub. So Prabhupada said that his rooms at Radha Damodar Temple was the very center of the spiritual world. He said because the Krishna consciousness movement began there. We know he translated first canto when he came to the America 60 years ago, 1965, September 1965, they're having big festival in Boston. The 60th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada placing his lotus feet on American soil. 60 years ago. Changed the world from coming to America at that time. So he said, I didn't know. He finished first volume. He brought the three volumes of the first canto to America with him. I think 3 trunks filled with books. And he told me, he said, I didn't know if I would be able to do more cantos. He didn't know what was going to happen. He said, so everything you need to be Krishna conscious, he said, I put in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's so special, the first canto. We can read all progressively, first, second, third, all the way to the 10th, 11th, 12th. But he said, everything you need to become Krishna conscious is in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada stayed there for the month. Vrindavan, Radha Damodar Temple. It was a big festival. 40 devotees were there. 40 devotees attended the festival, mostly from Europe, well, mostly from England and America. They came there. Prabhupada wanted to show all the Goswamis, he wanted to show all the residents of Vrindavan that he was fulfilling Lord Chaitanya's mission. He was turning Westerners, Malechas, into Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada wasn't shy. He was very proud that he was fulfilling Lord Chaitanya's desire, the desire of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the desire of his spiritual master. He was proud of his accomplishments. He didn't see them as his accomplishments. That was his humility. But he saw them as the accomplishments of his spiritual master. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's desire was being fulfilled. And he would say, he spoke in English to his disciples, his Western disciples. And then he had a fire yajna towards the end of Kartik, Balaram's Rasayatra. He had a big fire yajna. Did first initiation, Brahmin initiation, and he made sannyasis in Vrindavan. Way back when, Vrindavan was just a quiet town. Loi Bazaar was busy but quiet compared to what it's like now. Prabhupada wanted them all to see. They didn't think we were Vaishnavas. Many of the residents there, many of Prabhupada's godbrothers, they didn't consider us Vaishnavas. I was telling Prabhu today, I said we would go to the same places, Ganga Prasad, Gangotri, Bahari Lal's, all these places, and buy things. They were very happy to take our money, our rupees, but they would put it down on the table. They didn't want to touch us. The money they could touch, that they were happy to take. They were businessmen after all. They had to figure out how to, but they would say, put it down on the table. You're not qualified to be Vaishnavas. Prabhupada speaking, he would always emphasize, this was Lord Chaitanya's desire. What's the question of spreading the holy name all over the world? Unless you're giving it to everyone all around the world. So on the way to Vrindavan, I think we were in Bangkok or somewhere, Burjan, many of you know Burjan Prabhu. Some of you, he's your initiating spiritual master. I was massaging Prabhupada one day before lunch, and I'm behind him rubbing mustard oil on his body. This was on the way to Vrindavan for Kartik. And Prabhupada, he's meditating. He's going to Vrindavan, he's going to Mayapur with his disciples, his Western disciples, his dancing white elephants. That was the key. They would come just to see us, just to see dancing white elephant, white Vaishnavas. Many people never even saw a white person before. We would go from Calcutta to Mayapur. We'd stop for petrol. They'd surround the car just because there are these white people in a car. And then they see Tilak and Dodi. They couldn't believe it. Where do these people come from? So Prabhupada started talking to Burjan, joined very early. And he said, my godbrothers criticize me because I've allowed women in the temple. He said in India, the temples, all the temples, just brahmacharis, sannyasis, Gaudiya Math, just brahmacharis and sannyasis, everything. He said, and they criticized me that I've allowed women in the temple. He said, but I studied. He came to America in 1965. It was a year before he sat down in Tompkins Square Park chanting and people started to come. He said, I studied the culture of America, and I could understand that if we were going to be successful, if I was going, he says we, his humility, if we're going to be successful, that I had to allow women, because men and women, he said, mix freely in the West. He said, but they criticize me. He said, but you go to Mayapur, he said, Gaur Purnima, he said, who's in the temple? Widows. Nothing but widows, huh? Women, old women in white. And then I'm massaging Prabhupada. And it was the first question I asked Prabhupada, and probably the best question I ever asked him. I said, Prabhupada, how do you know the difference between changing a principle and making an adjustment? Then it got quiet, and I'm rubbing his back, and I'm thinking, what happened? And then he said, that requires a little intelligence. But he made that simple, some would say not simple, most dramatic adjustment. And because of that, he spread Krishna consciousness all around the world. And to this day, you'll see, you go to temples everywhere. Women, pujaris, cooking in the kitchen. These things were unheard of before Srila Prabhupada came. But in order to spread Krishna consciousness, he could see he was a sannyasi. What was the question? Wouldn't even talk to women sannyasis. Prabhupada in the initial days, not only talked to them, he initiated them, gave them Brahmin initiation, he married grihastas. Sannyasi's business, not sannyasi's business. But he did it. He had no choice. And then gradually, as his disciples became trained up, Prajumna, and he didn't do it anymore. And then a little after that, he would get letters from his grihasta disciples, sometimes with their problems. And he said, this is not my business. This is not sannyasi's business. So he did what he had to do, and then he stopped as things progressed, and he could turn it over to his disciples. So I think this is my last evening here. We just had a few programs here. Last night I was here. And starting tomorrow, I think I'm giving a Zoom class for another part of Sydney, right? West Sydney, North Sydney, something. But it will be a Zoom class. And I think everyone's free to attend if you find the link. But if anyone has any questions, comments, we could open it up this evening. And then from here, Tuesday, we'll be going to Brisbane for a week. We'll be doing some programs in Brisbane. And then right from Brisbane, we're going to Atlanta, Georgia in the USA for Panihati Festival that Jayapataka Maharaj started many, many years ago. And I've been going there pretty regularly for the last few years. But if anyone has any questions? Yes. Yes. I didn't say I wasn't able to do service. I just said I was sick all the time. Still do your service. Unless you're in bed and can't move, you do your service. I'll tell you one, it was Vrindavan. We were there for a month, and I was eating anything and drinking water from who knows where, and I was fine for a month. I never thought twice. Then we got to Ahmedabad, Prabhupada did a week of programs there, Pondal. And after we got there, I got deathly ill. I guess I had malaria. I didn't know what it was, but I was bedridden. And we were staying at a nice family's house, Grahasta family's house. And they called the doctor, homeopathic doctor. So that's what I remember. I remember this little Indian man coming in his little white outfit with a little black box. And inside were like 100 bottles. They all looked exactly the same. Little white pills in it. And he gave them one little bottle of pills, put it under your tongue. And I was better. 24 hours later, I was better. And I went to Prabhupada and I said, I was like, I'd never been sick. 12 years of school, I think I missed 3 days of school in 12 years. So being sick was not part of my makeup. And I was so sick. And I, very innocently, I said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I've never been so sick. He looked at me with surprise. He said, really? He said, our natural condition is diseased. He said, to be well, he said, that's very unusual. He said, being sick, that's very common. But then I realized, because he said that, our disease, this is our disease. We think we're this body. You can read these books for 50 years, chant for 50 years. We're still thinking we're this body. Still looking for money. Still want to be adored. All these things, so difficult for it to go away. So that's how I understood it. That was a disease. Prabhupada didn't have that disease. Even though his body was completely transcendental. We don't see it as a man, as a human, not transcendental. So then from there we went to Hyderabad, then we went to Mumbai. And we're in Mumbai staying at Kartikeya Mahadevi's place. And Kartikeya gave the whole place to Prabhupada, his disciples, his entourage. They just moved out. I don't even know where they stayed, but Prabhupada had one room. We had another room. Mataji cooked for us every day, very nice. And I'm with Prabhupada on a morning walk. Shima Sundar and I walking along, what's it called, Sea Life Park or something. Anyway, we're walking. Every morning, that's where Prabhupada would walk, right along the ocean there. And we're walking and the sun comes up. And Shima Sundar looks at me and starts laughing. He said, man, do you have jaundice? My eyes were yellow. And he's laughing. And I felt weak. I didn't feel anything else that I really knew, but I was feeling weak. And he said, boy, you have jaundice, So then we get back to the temple. Not the temple, Kartikeya's house. Tamal Krishna Maharaj is there, and maybe Gargamuni's, different devotees are all there. So very quickly that news went around, Prabhupada's servant has jaundice. So Prabhupada has his breakfast, and it's getting time for me to massage Prabhupada. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj says, you can't massage Prabhupada, you have jaundice. He said, it's very contagious, it's a very contagious disease. I'm like, oh. So I go right into Prabhupada's room, offer my obeisances. He's looking at me, yes? I said, Prabhupada, I have jaundice. He goes, oh. So what are the symptoms? I said, well, my eyes are yellow. I said, I'm really weak. I said, and your urine's brown. He looks at me. He says, perhaps I have jaundice. It was a joke. Perhaps I have jaundice because when you're old, that's how you feel all the time. You have no energy. So all you do is, every time you see a bathroom, you go in to pass. That's what you do when you get old. He said, perhaps I have jaundice. So I just smiled and said, but I said, Maharaj, tomorrow Krishna Maharaj says I shouldn't cook for you, I shouldn't bring you your lunch because it's contagious. Prabhupada looked at me. He said, can you do your service? I said, yes, Prabhupada, it's okay. He said, just do your service, don't worry about it. That was 1972. So 3 years later, I'm with Prabhupada, Brahmananda's with Prabhupada. Brahmananda has jaundice. I go into Prabhupada's room. 3 years later, offer obeisances. I said, Prabhupada, I said, Brahman, because that's what we did. He was our father. You know, he was everything. He was our temple president. He was the treasurer. He was temple commander. He was our father. So I go into his room. I said, Prabhupada, Brahmananda has jaundice. Prabhupada looks at me. He said, oh. He said, what are the symptoms? I just repeated them. I said, his eyes are yellow, urine brown. I said, and very weak. Prabhupada said, oh. He said, perhaps I have jaundice. That was Prabhupada. He was delightful to be with. It wasn't easy to be with, but he was delightful to be with, Prabhupada. But he had wonderful sense of humor. Wonderful sense of humor. So yeah, I was sick all the time. It didn't stop me from doing my service. Only malaria would stop you for a few days. And I had that 3 times while I was with Prabhupada. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Yes. Yeah. That time when I was reading Krishna book, I was there in LA for a week. I was in New Vrindavan. We went there just to get Brahmin initiation from Prabhupada. And that was the first time I saw Prabhupada had a servant. His servant at that time was Nanda Kumar. He just passed away last year, Nanda Kumar. Wonderful, wonderful devotee. Expert. Prabhupada said expert. And I saw Prabhupada has a servant. I never, at the time, I didn't know Prabhupada. I knew about Prabhupada, and we all heard about Prabhupada, everything he was doing. But it was the first time I saw that somebody actually is with him all the time. Helping him get up on the Vyasa-san, giving him his glasses, taking his cane, maybe taking his socks off. I started watching him, thinking, what a wonderful service that he gets to personally serve Prabhupada. I didn't think I want to be his servant. He was his servant, and I had my service back at New Vrindavan. But that was the first time it hit me in the head that Prabhupada has somebody that cooks for him, massages him, does all these things. And it fascinated me so much that I even stopped watching Prabhupada. I started watching Nanda Kumar until he gave me a dirty look one time, like, why are you looking at me, Yeah. And then I went back to New Vrindavan. I had just got Brahmin initiation. They put me in charge of the kitchen. The only person in the kitchen, you're in charge. You do everything. And Prabhupada came. And when he came, Nanda Kumar didn't come with him. He had left. So Prabhupada didn't have a servant. He was there for a week, Srila Prabhupada, giving Bhagavatam class every morning, giving class in the afternoon. I didn't get to go to any of them because I was in the kitchen, cooking. Always cooking for Srila Prabhupada. I think I told this just last night. Anyway, I was in there cooking, and I'm actually jealous. Everyone's getting Prabhupada's association but me. I was feeling sorry for myself. So the night before Prabhupada left, Kirtanananda comes into the kitchen, 8 o'clock at night. Says, do you want to be Prabhupada's servant? I said, yes. He said, okay, you'll leave with them tomorrow morning. So I literally had not even 12 hours notice. At 9 hours notice. The next morning, don't imagine I slept that night at all. And I didn't have to prepare things because usually we wore jeans and boots and everything, just like the farm here, muddy, always muddy. You know, it rains, you're just walking in mud. So we had our work outfits. And the next morning I left with them. 5 o'clock in the morning, Kirtanananda brought me into Prabhupada's room, tiny little room, Madhuban farm, and introduced me. Prabhupada had seen me because I was reading Krishna book to him 3 months earlier every day. So he kind of recognized me. But Kirtanananda introduced me. Prabhupada, this is Srutakirti. He's going to be your servant. Prabhupada just went, Prabhupada didn't make the arrangement. He didn't arrange for his own comfort. Devotee doesn't look for his comfort. That's devotee. Whatever Krishna provides, he's satisfied. So he wasn't searching for who's going to be my next. He didn't go to Kirtanananda, can you find me someone? It was Kirtanananda's arrangement. And he said, Srutakirti, he's going to be your servant. He said he's a very good cook, but he doesn't know how to massage. Prabhupada said anyone can massage. But he had to teach me how to do everything. Even how to fold the chadar, he had to teach me. Had to teach me. I think I'm the only person Prabhupada ever massaged because he grabbed my leg and started squeezing it to show me like this. He would say like a chapati dough. Like chapati dough. All you Matajis, you know how to do massage. You know how to make a chapati dough, you know how to massage. Yeah. So that's how it happened. Just Krishna's mercy. Miss Krishna's mercy. Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Did you hear her? There are many, but she mentioned a very nice one. When it was right here in Sydney. Prabhupada was translating the 5th canto in 1975 about the universes, about the moon being further away than the sun. And he said, now I'm convinced we never went to the moon. He was always convinced, but then he saw a Shastric reference that like backed it up for him. Shastra was, any knowledge is from Shastra. So anyway, he was talking about that every day on the morning walk, about the universes, about the moon, not going to the moon. And one evening I'm massaging him. And massage at night was no oil. I just rubbed his legs, massaged his feet, his toes, like that. And I'm massaging him, and he says, I had a servant. He said, my personal servant. He said, when I said he never went to the moon, he said he left. He said he couldn't accept that he never went to the moon. Then he looked at me, he said, you're not going to leave, are you? I said, no, Prabhupada. I said, I don't have any difficulty with that instruction. He said, very good. So that was very sweet. He showed his affection and that he appreciated my service. If you look in Kurma's book, I never quote it, but I will. He said they asked Prabhupada who was his favorite servant. Yeah. So, yes, he wanted me to stay all the time. He wanted me to stay because I knew what I was doing, and I was very quiet, and I didn't pester him. Basically, my idea as a servant was to be invisible. You know, he had to do everything, and my business was to create very good situation. Know what temperature the water should be for his bath, make sure he had his datung in the bathroom in the morning to brush his teeth, knowing what to cook, how he showed me what to cook for him, all those things. So that made his life easier to do his service. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Hare Krishna. Yes. I said my father died, I was 3. And I had 2 older sisters and then a Catholic Italian mother who was a caretaker. It's all she did her whole life. So that's what I learned, was taking care. I never learned being a grumpy father coming home from work, sitting down on a sofa demanding beers and watching television. I never saw that. So to be with Prabhupada, I was very comfortable. He was my father. He was my first father in every sense of the way. He was my father. And he could treat you like he was your father, and he could also treat you like he was your mother. He would take care of all your needs. When I was sick, he would see that I had what I thought I needed to eat. He would see that I had it, So he was very kind in every way. Yeah. I cooked, I don't know, probably close to 1,000 meals for him. He never complained about anything I cooked, not once. Not once did he say something wasn't good. Not once did he say too much salt, not enough salt, too much spice. He ate it every day. He ate it. As far as what he liked, he really relished chapatis. That's a whole story right there about chapatis, but he liked chapatis very much. But at Bhaktivedanta Manor, one day, he called me into the room before his massage and said, "Today I want you to make this preparation." He said, like, you take a liter of milk, make paneer. Make the paneer. He said, the whey, he said, you keep it in the pot. And the paneer, you cut it into cubes, you deep fry it in ghee for a long time till it gets really hard, dark, hard. He said, then you throw that into the whey, which is simmering on the stove. He said, then you cut up potatoes, same size as the paneer, you deep fry that, and you put it in the whey. He said, then you get some peas, you don't fry them, you just throw them in the whey. He said, then you cauliflower, you chop it up, you deep fry that, you throw it in the whey. He said, then you make a chaunce, and you put that in the whey. So I did that the first day, and that was part of his lunch with his dal rice chapatis. And the next day, before lunch, he called me in, he said, make it today. He did that for 10 days in a row. So he really liked that a lot. Prabhupada loved paneer, deep-fried paneer in ghee. And you fried it really thoroughly because when you put it in the ghee, it would soften it up, but it would be very chewy. So that was one of his, I consider, at least with me, one of his favorite preparations. Yeah. Thank you. Very nice. With the children? My experience is they really love my book. They're all little short stories. The children have a natural affection for Srila Prabhupada from what I've seen. And that's just hearing about him. Everyone, just like Krishna. That's what Prabhupada gave us, Krishna book. We become naturally attracted. The idea is to love someone, you have to know about them. Otherwise, there's no question of love. You have to know. You can't say, I love you. You just met somebody, 2 days ago. It's something that requires time. But for children in particular, like I tell the parents, they ask me the same thing. I say, you have to set the example for them. Not by telling them, you should chant, you should do this, by doing it, right? That's the role of the parents, is to themselves be nice devotees, to love Srila Prabhupada, to read Prabhupada's books, to chant. The children will imitate their parents. But if they say one thing and do another, they're going to do what you do, not what you tell them. The saying, do what I do, not what I say, Don't do what I say, do what I do. We say walk the talk. We can talk so many things, but unless you're doing it yourself, I use my daughter as an example. When she was young, all her friends smoked cigarettes. Their parents, they had to hide it because their parents would have forbid them to smoke, but their parents smoked. So what did they do? They didn't listen to them. They followed their example. She said, you never said anything. She said, but you didn't smoke. She said, and I never smoked. So that's what you have to do. You have to show them yourself, your own affection for serving Srila Prabhupada, for your attraction to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. Is that okay? Okay. It's all the ladies, no men. Okay. That's okay. With my godbrothers? It was a good pastime with my godbrothers. we last winter, December, January, we spent in GEV, Govardhan Eco Village, because Radhanath Swami, he's a very close friend. We were in New Vrindavan together back in 72, 71, although we rarely saw one another because he was on one farm up on the hill, and I was a couple miles down, a few kilometers down at the Bahulaban farm, which became the main farm. Anyway, we were there, and he's always gives us a lot of affection and love, and we got into the last month we were there. We started going to the Goshala all the time, spend time with the cows. Very wonderful, It's one thing just to visit him here and there, pat him on the head, give him a carrot or whatever, a banana. But when you actually start staying with them, it's it's very nice. And the last 2 weeks we were there, how many? 5 calves were born in the last 2 weeks we were there. So we were taking care of the calves. My wife was carrying them, feeding them, because sometimes they eat out of the bucket, the bucket with the little nozzle on it and things. So then one of her girlfriends got her a brush to brush the cows, because that's what Prabhupada said. You just brush them. You can polish their horns. Back in 72, when I was with Prabhupada, Kirtanananda sent me there because he knew he could ask me anything to ask Prabhupada. So he was my way of getting to Prabhupada. And after a year and a half, I became his way to get to Prabhupada. So he said, you're there. He said, if I want to ask Prabhupada a question, I'll send it to you. He sent one question. It said, should we do arati to the cows? So I asked Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, no. He said, you don't do arati. He said, they can brush them. He said, polish their hooves. They're cows. You take care of them as a cow. That's what you do. You can feed them fun things. You can brush them. And so anyway, her girlfriend just this last winter got her a brush to brush the cows. We were brushing this one big old bull. His name was Nanda Kumar. My godbrother's name, Nanda Kumar. As soon as I heard there was a bull named Nanda Kumar, I thought, well, where's Srutakirti in this Goshala? I said something to Radhanath Swami, because he had the little miniature cows. One was named Jamuna, Dinatarani, Vishaka, all Prabhupada's disciples' names, which made it very easy to remember them. So then as he promised me, he said, well, next bull calf that's born, we'll call him Srutakirti. I said, okay. I was happy now. I wanted equal opportunity personal servant. So the next calves that were born were twins. This one wonderful cow, Anandi, and very, very dangerous. And it actually paralyzed her, the mother. And she's recovered. It took literally months and months for her to get back on her feet and all. And Radhanath Swami said, keep the calves so that she can see them to encourage her. And it did. And we would go there every day, and my wife and I and others, and just pet her. And we literally, she would be laying down, they put her in a sling and up and down every day 2-3 times. And you literally had to burp her, because down on the ground they get gas and it will kill them. So we had to burp her, and my wife says, fart her, help her pass gas, everything, all day long we were taking care of her. And they were twins. And my godbrother at the time was there, Jananivas. So I said, well, you have to name them Pankajangri and Jananivas. So that's what we did. And then Radhanath Swami said, well, Srutakirti said that's what you have to name them. So then finally another one came, like just 2 days later, little bull calf came, beautiful little bull calf. He was named Srutakirti. So I have my own little bull calf there, and we're very eager to go back there to see him. And they grow so fast. 6 months later, they're almost full size. They're like halfway there. 1 year old, they're full size. They grow so fast, She was carrying them when we were there. I said, you're not going to carry them when you go back. There's no way. So anyway, her girlfriend got her a brush. So we're in GEV where everybody eats, all the yogis and everything, and like way back on the property, very nice place. They have like Govinda's Cafe, and they make everything. And Radhanath Swami, he has generally every day, he just kind of walks around, and talks to everyone, all the different yoga groups, all the devotees. None of his disciples will go anywhere near him. Not allowed. You don't disturb him. He does whatever he wants. That's his place. He walks around chanting in the morning, this way, that way, just by himself. Nobody with him. No one running around, little groupies, we call guru groupies. Now, but, well, sometimes dinner. He'll go and he just mingles. He likes yogis, He is a yogi. He's a great yogi. So anyway, we had the brush. She had just been given the brush, brand new little brush. And she showed it to Maharaj. Maharaj, she gave me a brush for the cows. He said, give it to me. So he took the brush and he said, turn around. I turned around and he started brushing my seat. So then I took the brush off of him. I said, turn around. And I started brushing the back of his head. So this is how we should be with our God brothers, our God sisters, other devotees. Just have nice. We're a family. This is our family. We're all related. Like Prabhupada said, I had 5 children. They gave him so much trouble. He said, now I had, at the time he said, hundreds of children, thousands of children. And he saw them all as his children. So we're all related. We're all children and uncles and aunts and nieces and nephews. And our business is always to help one another in this process of Krishna consciousness and how to purify our desire so that at the end of this life we go back home, back to Godhead. Thank you. Hare Krishna.